Welcome to foHRsight, a podcast about HR, leadership, and the future of work. I'm one of your co-hosts, Naomi Titleman, and I'm very excited to welcome today's special guest, Liane Davey, back to the show. Liane was one of our very first foHRsight guests back in 2023, episode 15. So 150 episodes later, it seems like a milestone, and here we are again. Liane is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and HBR contributor on a bold mission as the teamwork doctor, which I love that title, to radically change the way people communicate, connect, and contribute so they can achieve amazing things together. She also continues to inspire me each year with her 30 tips on what to say no to in her November series. Last we connected was around your epic book, The Good Fight, which I've taken so much from, including some great analogies and metaphors, and I'm excited to chat about your new book, ThoughtLoad, today. How are you doing today, and where are you joining us from, Liane?
I'm doing really well. I'm in that mode now. I've been writing a book for a year, and now I'm starting that year where you're out telling the story. And I'm in Toronto. I'm actually at home today.
No, congratulations.
For the last 6 months, I feel like, paying downtown Toronto prices for a house is crazy because I'm never here, but I'm delightfully in Toronto, socked in the winter in Toronto, but glad to be home.
Great. And we've gotten some sunshine this week. So that's a good special bonus. -3 and sunny, we'll take it.
Exactly. The sun goes a long way. I think that's a very
really
Canadian thing where you're like, well, it's -50, but it's sunny. It's like the people in Arizona. It's a dry heat.
Right. Exactly. We love to talk about the weather here in Toronto. All right. Well, we're going to check in before we get started. And so my check-in today is related to your book. What is taking up too much of your thought load today?
Oh, well, probably one thing. And it's a natural thing. My daughter, who moved to the UK to do her master's degree, finished her master's degree and is now looking for work. And it is not a fun time to be looking for work. And so just, trying to support her, think about, ways I could help her, people I could network her to, but then just helping her with the feeling of, oh, like, why does nobody want me? But, all of that. So, in the middle of, and because she's in the UK, often we have to talk not at the end of my day because she's in bed. So it'll be in the middle of the day when I'm working on things. I have another one writing 2 midterm exams today. So, that stuff, it sits with you as a parent. So I love they're in such close touch. I love that I'm a part of their lives, but I carry them with me throughout the day.
Yes, makes sense. We're only as happy as our least happy child. I think that's the way the saying goes. And we carry the thought load of all of our children, regardless of whether they're happy or not.
Yeah, when I was working on the dedication for this book, I dedicated it to my mom, who's 92. And I dedicated it to her, saying that she has always reduced my thought load at the expense of increasing her own. And that was my dedication, because even at 92, she'll still email me, have you done this? Have you thought about that? I'm like, you're taking on my thought load for me. She always has. And I think that's kind of the definition of a parent. So.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. All right, well, let's dive in and let's start with you. Can you just refresh our listeners' memories on your career journey to date, where you are today, and what inspired you to write this new book?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, I have a PhD in organizational psychology. And so I have spent, oh my goodness, not quite 30 years, but close enough, helping people achieve amazing things together. So if there is messy people stuff, so that's why I wrote The Good Fight, conflict and our avoidance of conflict was the messiest people issue that was, preventing teams from achieving amazing things together. So that's what I've done for a long, long time now. My husband and I have a consulting firm. We work with CEOs to help them on their business strategy and their executive team effectiveness. And then what I do is I figure out, with that psychologist lens, what are the biggest issues getting in the way of teams performing right now? And then I go deep and I go after it. So hence why thought load. I believe thought load is the biggest issue of our time in people being able to achieve amazing things together.
It's so true. I was just having a conversation with someone last night, and I've been now out of corporate, like a corporate role for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I said, when we worked together 10 years ago, did you feel so overwhelmed. Like I never found myself feeling that overwhelmed. Right. So is it just that we're in a different time, or we're just really good at managing our thought load, or is it a combination of all? Because obviously we are in very different times, but I'm wondering.
I think work has changed considerably. So the thing that I'm paying a lot of attention to right now is the rise of matrix structures and cross-functional team structures.
Yeah.
So let's just give a quick pass on what thought load is. So essentially, my premise is that work isn't working. It's not working from a productivity perspective. It's not working from a stress and burnout perspective. It's not working. But while most people go straight to blaming the workload, if I watch, people aren't getting that much work done.
Right. No, it's so true. And what is work, right? Is sending a bunch of emails and being on Slack that is work, because are you moving things along or not?
Exactly. So when I came to it, I'm like, it's not the workload that's killing us, it's the thought load. So thought load is a treacherous triad of three things: the cognitive demands we're under, how much we have to pay attention to; the emotional burdens, how frequently we're kind of triggered or into that emotionally reactive place. And third, the depleted energy reserves. So our physical, emotional, spiritual energy to do what we need to do. So that's the kind of the treacherous triad of thought load. And so if you think about cross-functional teams and matrix structures, if I think about when I first started working, I worked in a team of about 7 people, and we were pretty tight. We got to know each other well. We trusted each other. We understood one another's idiosyncrasies. We cared about each other as people. We kind of tucked in and did what we were good at and figured things out. Now imagine that you are part of that team, and then you are matrixed into some account team with people from all different functions, or a regional team, or an industry council, right? All of a sudden, it's not the 7 people who you can know and understand, and it's not one set of priorities and work outcomes. It's like 7 times 7.
Right. Yeah. It's exponential.
And you're on that many Slack channels and Teams channels and emails and meetings and all those sorts of things. So that's the cognitive demands are really going up exponentially with these structures. But now take the emotional burdens. So it used to be those other 6 people, I knew them really well. I'm like, oh, she's having a bad day. Just going to keep my distance.
Yeah.
Now, I think people are interacting with like 40 people in a week. And you can't trust them all. They don't all trust you. You can't understand their idiosyncrasies. And now, instead of having the potential for emotional contagion coming from 6 people, you have it coming from 40 people. And so that's so I think that's a big thing. Now, take that as the work experience and wrap it in what our human experience is today. So you're reading about wars and threatened invasions, and is your company going to be subject to tariffs of 100%? And et cetera, et cetera. It's a hatred in our society, just people who are on edge. So you get on the subway and you see some kind of mental illness, and that's upsetting. And we've raising the most socially anxious generation of children ever. So, thought load isn't some neat, tidy, compartmentalized, just, how many cross-functional teams you're on. It's all of what you're carrying around and how heavy that load is because we're depleted. So I think I would say it's a combination of those two things. So structurally, organizations, both in how we're structured and the technology we use and things like Slack, mean we're systemically kind of overwhelmed. And then add that to a context where things are very uncertain. Is AI going to eat my job? Is my kid going to come home from college at Thanksgiving? So it's all of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for going through that and explaining that. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, we talk about burnout, and similar to burnout, people, jump right to people have too much work to do, but do they really have too much work to do? And if
they have no bandwidth to do the work.
Right. And no capacity in their brain, right? Like there's no emotional real estate to handle the stuff that we're throwing people's way and the pivoting on priorities, and nothing's ever a priority for longer than a week. And then, these sudden pivots that create this organizational whiplash, that's really what's causing the burnout, right?
There's a few stats that have really blown my mind in researching for the book, but one was from Gartner. And in 2016, they did research on how many organization level transformations people were exposed to in a year. And in 2016, it was like two or three organizational transformations, I think two. And they said about 75% of people were bought in that these were good things. And they were 6 years later, right? Not very long. 6 years later, the average person was subjected to 10 enterprise level transformations. And we were down to 34% of people being bought into them. So just the waves that are coming at us. So in the two, it was the era of, if there was a change, we had a binder and it had tabs and we had laminated stuff and we probably got free swag.
That.
Right?
Yes, I do.
Like, so many of my workout clothes are like t-shirts from organizational change initiatives, right? From companies I don't work for anymore. So that was our world. We could prepare for it. We could lean into it. We could embed it. Now it's just constant. And so it's funny that the whole Thought Load book and body of work emerged from a speech I was giving called Change Has Changed. And that's where it came from, because I started looking at these data and I said, look, the human reaction to change has been the same for millennia. Like, we don't evolve that quickly, right? Change is disruptive, it's threatening, it's all that. That's no different. But change in the workplace has changed. It used to be an event and now it's perpetual. So Thought Load came from, we need to manage differently in a world of perpetual change. We need to manage attention, manage anxiety, and manage energy. And that's where the Thought Load concept emerged from. That's the fun of doing this work, is things are very organic. That's where it came from.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so we're going to dive deep into a few of the concepts in your book. And the first we're going to talk about is chasing outcomes instead of outputs. So maybe you can give us a real life example on how this shift in thinking has transformed someone, maybe your own life. Yeah, and what does this look like on a Tuesday afternoon when you're drowning in tasks?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, let's set the stage. So there are three things you can pay attention to: activities, outputs, and outcomes. So activities are just like doing the email, going to the meeting. Outputs are, I've accomplished something. And an outcome is something changed in the world in a way that we were looking for. So the problem is, if you pay attention to activity, you just become busy. Like, you could be trying to respond to Slack messages and never sleep and never finish, right? If you pay attention to outputs, you become productive. And most managers, as soon as I say that, they're like, oh, good. Yeah, that's what I want. I want my people to be productive. And I'm like, it's a trap. Productivity is a trap. Makes us feel good. I checked the box. I did the thing. I shipped. I pressed send. But only when you pay attention to outcomes do you get effectiveness. And I think a big part of our problem is we are chasing productivity on things that are not moving the needle. So paying attention to chasing outcomes is about figuring out, what's the quest I'm on? I'm a noble knight on a quest. What's the quest I'm on? And can I really focus on the outputs that move the needle and the activities that deliver those outputs? And do way fewer things, way fewer outputs because they're not working. I'll give you the personal story.
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself that for 13 years, every Sunday, I wrote a blog. I did a blog post. Oh my God, I was so proud of myself. I'm so conscientious. I'm so consistent. These other people who, right? I was thinking I was just hot stuff for this. And at some point, I'm like, it's 2026. People are not consuming in the same way. They're overwhelmed. They don't want another blog. It's not working, Liane. It's not getting you what you need. And it was really awful because, of course, I had this epiphany while writing this chapter of the book. And I was like, oh, I'm the example. Oh, that's embarrassing. That's really
We have our own example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We do.
I tell everybody, I only write the books I need to read, right? Right.
That's amazing.
And so I started saying, all right, like, what is the outcome I'm chasing, which is to help teams achieve amazing things together. I'm the teamwork doctor. Is a blog getting me that outcome? No. Like, what could I put my energy into? So I have completely changed what I'm putting my energy into, much more around scripts and tools and quick visuals and things that will help busy people. More like the chocolate bar at the checkout in the grocery store than having to do all the aisles, right? I was making people comb the aisles. Like, no, here's a quick hit. So I had that epiphany.
That's great. And thank you for the first metaphor on our today.
My metaphors per minute is always high. So
we got to get more. And similarly, I've shared this on the podcast before. We decided not to do weekly newsletters anymore because when we first started doing weekly newsletters, our friends needed us to curate the 4 things they needed to pay attention to. Right. They don't need us to do that anymore. They can use their AI virtual assistant to focus on the articles that they specifically need in that moment. So we went monthly.
There's foHRsight.
Yeah, there's foHRsight. Exactly. So we had the same epiphany and it was painful because we've been doing this, since 2020, but times were very, very different in 2020. And so if we keep focused on the outcome, which is making work better, is producing a weekly newsletter where Mark and I literally comb the internet manually to find the 4 articles that people need to pay attention to. Right. That's not the best use of our time anymore. So we're focused on monthly, on sharing the unique insights that we get out of our member events, out of our, broader events, out of our podcast.
AI can't find.
Right. Exactly.
I love that. And I think so many of us are in the productivity trap. And so patting ourselves on the back for being highly productive and skipping dinners with family or not having joy in our lives or various other things that we are trading off for productivity when that productivity is not contributing to effectiveness.
Yeah, for sure. And I have tried to eliminate the word busy from my vocabulary because like I say to my friends, when I say, how are you? And they say busy, I'm like, well, you could be busy watching Netflix all day, right? Like you could be busy with anything. It just depends on what you fill your day with. So I think, that word busy is still, very rewarded. It feels like the right thing to say. If you don't say you're busy, you kind of feel like a loser. So I love your point that the productivity trap is real. And we all need to face the fact that it's painful, but we probably do a lot of stuff in a day that we really don't need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem is, most of our organizations aren't very good at defining outcomes.
Yeah, totally.
So we aren't aligned around the outcomes. So we just do stuff.
Yeah.
We better do stuff.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean on our podcast.
Keeping it clean. But it kind of is stuff, right? I feel like that's what it is. I was in front of a leader in a very large organization who was in front of his whole senior leadership team. And he sort of raised his hand. He goes, Liane, don't you think that we could get rid of 20% of our staff and be just as productive? I think we have a lot of dead wood here. And first of all, I was mortified that he was saying this in front of his whole team of leaders.
And what did you say?
I said, you know what? I've met your people. I think they're really hardworking, ambitious, smart people. I don't think you have dead wood here. I think you have a lot of dead work. And I think it's the people in this room that are responsible for figuring out what's dead work, because you are creating reports that nobody's reading. You are having meetings that, lead to nothing. So don't talk to me about dead wood when you aren't taking responsibility for the dead work.
Yeah.
So I was kind of grossed out. I was like,
get that t-shirt. I think you need that t-shirt for your workouts.
Ooh, you do need that t-shirt.
No dead wood, dead work.
Exactly.
Go find it. Go chop it down.
Yeah. And there's so much of it. And it contributes to our thought load in a way that's just so demoralizing.
Yeah, it really is. Because you look back, you go and do your performance evaluation at the end of the year and you're writing down all these tasks. And it's like, but I didn't come close to achieving the outcome that we wanted to achieve. So what do we do with that?
My favorite story about that, I worked with this awesome colleague. His name was Jim. And Jim used to work at a Canadian subsidiary of a big computer company. So he was the head of IT for Canada. And he was spending so much of his time sending reports to head office. And so one day, because he's cheeky, I love Jim, he covered the entire Canadian boardroom with like 1 page at a time of every report. Like he wallpapered the boardroom, and he brought in the Canadian CEO, and he's like, this is what I have to send my team is spending the month creating these reports. He goes, I want your permission to stop sending one a month until somebody notices. And the CEO was like, okay, I got your back. It was 8 months before the first person noticed that he hadn't sent it. That's dead work.
That is dead work. That is a great example of dead work. So on a similar thread, you dedicate an entire section to doing more nothing. In a culture that glorifies hustle, how do you convince high achievers that doing nothing isn't just acceptable, it's actually essential for performance?
Yeah. So I talk to them about like, what's your unique value? What are you selling to your employer? Like if you're selling to your employer email answers or manual labor, then yeah, doing nothing is not, they're not getting their money's worth.
Right.
But are you selling insight? Because if you're selling insight, that doesn't come when your brain is on high thought load. So I tell the story in the book of where this idea came from for me. So in 2016, I was watching a Netflix documentary called Cooked by Michael Pollan. It's an amazing documentary. If you like food stuff, it's really good. And in one of the episodes, he's talking about if you ate all the flour and drank all the water in the world, you would soon starve. But if you mix together the flour and the water and expose them to air, where they would, of course, collect yeast, you could bake that into bread and live indefinitely. And I had this epiphany that that's what my life was like. I was choking on flour and water. I had no shortage of, I have the coolest clients. I read so many scientific articles every week. Oh my goodness, there was so much raw material, but there was no air with which my brain could reflect, make connections, create insight. And that's what I sell. Right? And so I created something, and folks can look it up. It's on my blog, called a 2-week cleanse. And it was finding 6 periods of about 45 minutes each over a couple of weeks to have zero input, absolutely none. You could be walking or driving or gardening or whatever you want to do, but not listening to the radio, no podcast, no whatever. And it was crazy how this just restored my energy. And now I do it routinely when I'm stuck. I'm like, okay, you know what I need to do? I need to just go have no input. And so that can be a walk, can be a bath. My favorite, if I'm in the right, a massage is a really great place. The only frustrating thing with a massage is you have some brilliant thought and then you spend the last 20 minutes being like, don't forget this, don't forget this.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's amazing. So when people say, I'm so burned out, how do I get my energy back? How do I get my spark? How do I get my creativity back? The answer is not to choke yourself on more flour and water. The answer is you've got plenty of that already. Expose it to some air. It will percolate, rise, all sorts of good things will happen. So yeah, that one's been very successful.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. So part of what we need to do, let's go to the next one, is canceling most meetings, which is advice that everyone wants to hear, but very few are able to actually implement and hold themselves accountable to. Yeah. So what's the difference between meetings we should kill and meetings that actually serve us? And how do we know? How do we test them?
Yeah. So the biggest one for me is, does the meeting change the trajectory of the topic? And that's a very low bar. Yeah. But most meetings don't get over that bar.
It's so true.
So most meetings are just story time, but without nice picture books. Some people do spend a lot of time on their stock images. So sometimes,
exactly.
But it's certainly never a pop-up book or anything fun like that. Yeah. So that's what I would say. So are you coming in to co-create something? Are you coming into a meeting to have a place? So my really high bar, if I'm talking about it, you know that the good fight is my passion. I say, if there's no conflict, there's no meeting.
Wow.
And it's amazing how
many... a lot of people do the reverse, right?
Yeah. Good point. Oh, that's so sad, but so true.
So sad. If there's going to be conflict, I don't want to have that meeting.
Right.
I'm a human-centered leader, aren't I?
We want productive conflict. We want the good kind.
We do. We want kind, not nice.
Right. And if we are walking in and there is no tension on coming at this topic from different perspectives, from the lens of different stakeholders, with tension in different directions, if that is not the case, why are you having a meeting? You could just have a shared Google Doc.
Yes, so true.
Right? So that's the high. So the lowest bar is that we are changing the trajectory on the content in some way, right? So we either, as we're listening to the plan, we realize that's not set up for implementation. And so we change the plan, or we engage in it. Something changes. as a result of us versus most meetings where it's just like reading out loud and then just like, okay, right? Like nothing
and people are
happened.
multitasking anyway these days.
Man, it's so painful. And I would say, like, it's funny. We often, and I fall victim to this. I look at the person who's on their phone in a meeting, and I do, especially as a facilitator, often have a moment of being like, bad you. Like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
But what I'm trying to do now is take it as a sign that they have, as an adult, made a decision that the conversation happening in the room is less valuable use of their time than the thing that's happening on the phone.
Yeah.
And that should be a reflection on the quality of the meeting.
Yeah, it should.
And so I now have a rule, which came from my younger daughter. So I have to thank Mac for this because this is brilliant. She does not like phone use at a restaurant at all. But we're the kind of family that something will come up and somebody will want to Google it or whatever. So she has a very strict rule, one phone at a time. And she's pretty permissive about one phone at a time. If you're looking up something to do with something we're talking about, like we were in the UK over the holidays and we were talking about, like, could we go see Marty Supreme? It was okay for one person to be on their phone checking to see if we could get tickets to Marty Supreme. But her rule is you cannot have a second person. So we were facilitating a session in LA last week and I tried it. I'm like, you are adults. You can make a choice that there's something important that you need to deal with. But we had like 12 or 13 people in the room, like one at a time. And so 3 times it happened that a second person pulled, and I just went, 2 phones. And 2 phones does 2 things. It causes the people who are on the phone to be like, oh, I didn't even, like, that was just a knee jerk. I just picked that up without even looking. But it also causes me as the facilitator to go, has this lost momentum? Is this not what we need to be talking about? And often the answer is that it's not what we need to be talking about. We're talking about something that only 3 people need to be talking about. That could be taken to another forum. We've gone so far in the weeds that it's no longer at the level we should be talking. So I'm trying to think differently about it. That it's a diagnostic on the value of the meeting as much as it is an assessment of the person's attention span.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Something else comes to mind, and we'll talk about contagion and specifically emotional contagion. But there is something that, like, once you see 2 people on their phone, it's almost permission to do that too. It's like
100%
contagion there.
There's huge contagion with phones. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about emotional contagion in teams.
Yeah.
And maybe describe what this looks like when it's happening. And if you have a story about a leader who successfully stopped it from spreading in a bad way. I know there's positive ways to spread emotional contagion too.
So just to give your listeners a sense of what emotional contagion is, have you ever been at a comedy act and the person's bombing and all of a sudden your palms are sweating?
Yeah, totally. Or I thought someone starts laughing awkwardly and then you start laughing too.
Right.
Which has also happened.
All of those, right?
Yes.
So emotional contagion is the spreading of one person's emotions to another person without them knowing. So we talk often about the value and the benefit of empathy, which is cognitively understanding what somebody else is feeling. Sympathy is feeling the same thing as them. It's not cognitive. It's not under our control. So to sympathize, to feel the same as someone else is really, really risky in organizations. It's how we get drama. So what is this about? It's like you come into your Monday morning meeting and you've had a good weekend and you come in like cheery. And the first thing somebody says is, our biggest customer just canceled their contract. And then you just feel the whole room just goes like,
right. And it doesn't even have to be that big of a thing.
It does not.
Yeah.
It does not. So emotional contagion, they believe, we're just learning the neuroscience of it, but we believe what happens is someone's body language portrays the emotion that they're experiencing, and then mirror neurons in our brains mirror that body language. And then all of a sudden, our shoulders are slumping or our brow is furrowing and our brains are like, oh, her shoulders are slumping. I think of it like the movie Inside Out, right? The control panel. They're like, oh, shoulders are slumped. Liane must be sad. So that's what's happening. And so it can really spread very quickly. And it can spread even when we don't know. We have no idea what's making the other person upset. So one of the interesting things is that often with a leader, something maybe is a socially anxious kid that they're worried about, right? It's their kid's first day at a new school or something. And they're carrying that in their thought load. They're feeling it. They're a bit distracted by it. Their body language is telling that story. Their words are telling a totally different story, just trying to move through the meeting. But everybody else will pick up that body language. And then there's this cognitive dissonance about what's the am I in trouble? That's what we go to these days. Am I in trouble? Are we in trouble? Is something bad? Is something wrong? And that emotional contagion spreads, usually in a way that we're not actually explicit about what's going on. We don't give each other a chance to process what's going on. And that's when it spreads like wildfire. So yeah, great leaders who are good at it notice it. And then they stop and they're like, I'm just noticing your body language. You kind of push back from the table and, what's going on for you? How are you thinking about this? What are we not talking about that we need to be? So the antidote to emotional contagion is to make it more intellectual, more curious. Once the frontal lobe is involved, then we've got choices. So great leaders notice it. They don't ignore it. They kind of stop in a very gentle, affirming way. They're like, hey, I care that something's going on for you. What's going on? And the person may say, oh, you know what? It's just something going on at home. And then everybody goes, okay. And then on the lunch break, they're like, hey, anything I can help with or right. But normally we just try to truck through. Yeah. And that emotional contagion spreads. And it spreads in all sorts of ways that have nothing to do with where it comes from. So it's really risky.
Yeah, that is really risky. It seems like the next iteration of emotional intelligence, right? Like we talk about our own emotions and controlling how we manage them. Yeah. And then the second part is really understanding other people's emotions and helping them manage that in order to, manage the relationship appropriately. And people often forget about that second piece and it ends up festering. And to your point, people get paranoid. People are focused on the wrong things. It increases people's thought load like crazy. So yeah. It's a really important tactic.
That's horrible for thought load, right? Yeah. You are going to sit in this emotionally triggered spot. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is happening, which burns energy at a much, much higher rate, right? If you have a day like that, you go home and you are wiped. Yeah. So yeah, it's very costly. And so, a lot of my teamwork doctoring these days is preventing the spread of emotional contagion.
Yes. I was just thinking to myself, everybody needs a Liane Davey kind of sitting on their shoulder, like tapping them, saying 2 phones, tapping them. Yeah.
Try 2 phones. It's really amazing how well it works.
I'm going to try it with my kids for sure. Yeah, because
and of course, I've learned so many great things from my kids. They teach me so much, right? Yeah. But it's just great because I love the concept that baked into it. It's like, look, sometimes like we live in a phone world. And so it's okay that sometimes one person needs to be on a phone. But the second person often picks it up just as if a yawn spreading around a room, right? Yeah. They didn't even know they were picking up their phone, right? Yeah. They just kind of did it out of instinct. And that's where we need deliberateness back in our lives.
We do.
That's what if we go back to busy people who say they're busy, I always feel sad for them because then I'm like, oh, so you're not deliberate about how you're spending your time?
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
Letting it all the flour and water choke you. Like,
that's very visual. The flour choking me. I feel like I'm choking on flour now.
Well, open your email or your Teams or your Slack. We are choking on content all the time. Yeah. I'm choking on content. Just even in, working on stuff for the book launch, the number of articles that are so interesting and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I've had 20 scientific articles this week that I've tried to read because they're really relevant. I'm like, I'm choking on that. It's too much. I need to get on a plane. I'm getting on a plane on Sunday. I'll have 5 hours on the plane to just be like, okay, what do I make of all of it together? How do I just back off from it a bit? So yeah, I think we're all choking and sort of drowned. We're being waterboarded by all the stuff that's coming at us. And we just need some of that space to be like, what are my insights about this? What do I make of it? Because that's what's going to, separate us from AI. AI is going to be great at flour and water. But
yeah. And it gets better at the second part. So, I'm curious if you're using AI to help with some of that thought load.
Where I really like it is that when your thought load's really heavy, starting something new is really hard. I find I have a lot of inertia. Like I need to write a new article and I'm like, oh, like
I feel that too.
The cursor is like flashing on a blank page. I'm like, stop taunting me.
Yeah.
AI is great there. And often what I'll do is I'll do a prompt that's something about like, what's the most vanilla, useless, trite advice that people are giving on the internet about X topic?
I love
and
that.
then what happens is that's positively emotionally triggering for me because I'll read the answers and I'm like,
you're like, I'm so much better.
so wrong. Like, why are they telling people that? There's no evidence of like all these kinds of things. And then once I'm positively emotionally triggered like that, then I can write something, the energy comes and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, here we go. So I often use it that way.
Yeah.
Certainly it's great as a research tool when you're trying to find articles that would have taken me eternity before. So I like it for things like that. I'm trying not to use it. Like I find I've done a few times where I've said, I've written a blog and put it through AI and asked it to improve it. And when I read the first time, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then I stop. I'm like, it's amazing because it's schlock. Like it's really good schlock.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I need to not fall for that. So I'm not falling for it with my writing anymore.
Yeah, it's a blend for sure.
Yeah, it's a blend.
It's a blend. But even like triangulating themes and stuff like that, it can be quite helpful. If you're having 20 scientific articles sent to you, popping it through AI and helping get to the themes. But I also have in my mind, we just spoke to a university professor and who was talking about like the deliberateness of messy learning and how we have to be careful not to avoid the messy learning by shipping everything out to AI, right? So it's very helpful in like triangulating all sorts of articles, but should we still try to do some of that ourselves, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And really, think about the process in getting to bread, right? You got to knead it. It's mucky. It's messy. It's sticky, right? You got to go through that. And just outsourcing that, I think what you get out the other end of that is like Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
And when you actually get in there, right? Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and
so true.
There's a lot of Wonder Bread that we're all having to eat
There's a lot
lately.
of Wonder Bread.
You want the scary one? And I shouldn't say the name, but my husband told me, read an article that those kinds of breads are actually, they're not even like done with yeast. They're actually technically not a bread. They're a foam that's baked. And so then I had some somewhere. I think I was at my mom's or something. And I had it and I was like, oh, now all I can taste is like foam. Baked foam.
Right. Like it's the same ingredients as glue.
Right.
I've heard that one. Yeah.
Right. And so, that's so sad. But that's kind of what the AI writing is like. You're like,
it's true.
Yeah. You're like,
it's true. It was all exciting at the beginning, and now it's like, no, I could tell when it's AI written, and it's Wonder Bread.
It's Wonder Bread.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, so I want to touch on one more concept, which is leaving loudly. I would love to unpack what that means and why silence when we leave might actually be hurting everyone who's left behind.
Yeah. Oh, I love this one. When I was in the final section of the book and talking about how do you help your team understand the importance of renewing their energy and renewable energy sources. And I was thinking back to a time when I led a team. I had young kids and I led a big team. And my kids were competitive dancers. Warning, don't do that. But that meant that they were at the dance studio 6 days a week. And most days had to be there at 4:30. And so thankfully, between my husband, myself, and my best friend and her husband, we had 4 people to split this driving. But it meant that on Mondays, I had to leave the office at 3:00 on a Monday to drive to the school, pick up the kids, drive them to Tim Hortons to get something to eat, and then get all of them into tights and buns and whatever else. It was a crazy time.
I feel you.
And I made a decision back then because at 3:00, like I normally wouldn't have left till 5:30. And so I was leaving 2.5 hours early, and I was the boss. And I thought, well, I'm the boss. I can just walk out and nobody's going to say anything. Or it's consulting. So I could just like pretend that I'm at a meeting or whatever. And I'm like, that is the absolute wrong message to send. So I decided years and years ago that I would leave loudly. And so at 3:00, we had a big open office. I'd be like, off to drive the dance bus, toot toot, right? And I would make a big deal of it. And I did that to say, look, we are people with lives, and we are very fortunate to work in a kind of work where those two things can actually flex for one another. So everybody understood that if they needed me, if it was an emergency, they could call me. It would probably be the speakerphone in a minivan, and Taylor Swift would be playing, but they could reach me. And they also knew that, like, when the kids went to bed at 9:00, I would be on and doing work and whatever else. But it was so important because it sent a really loud message that we need to invest in our own energy. We need to have our lives work with our work. And so then the rest of that chapter, I talk about, like, what are ways to leave loudly in other ways too? Like, how do we show that sometimes the cognitive demands are too high? And how do we tell people, you know what, we need to push this off for a month because thinking about this now is detracting from. So that's kind of leaving loudly on that. What about emotionally? You know what? Being really honest and vulnerable sometimes about, this is all feeling a bit too hard right now. Like, I need some help in how I think about this stakeholder because I am not making any headway. So just leaving loudly as kind of a concept to make our thought load transparent to other people, be okay with the fact that we are human and we have thought load and it comes from everywhere, talking about how to manage it effectively. And when you do that, you just create this psychologically safe space for people to be human. And you make thought load a safe word to talk about. Where's your thought load at this week? And you can say, like, it's pretty rough for me right now. My mom is moving into a new place and I'm having to think about that or whatever, right? So it's amazing when you set this tone to leave loudly. Really changes the environment.
I love it. What a great positive note to leave on. And I hope people take that away. There were so many other concepts that I wanted to touch on, but I'm sorry, listeners, you're going to have to go out and buy the book and read it because it's so topical. It's so relevant right now. I've already learned so much from this conversation. Many of our listeners are HR professionals and certainly have a fair share of thought load these days. Do you have any final words of wisdom specifically for HR leaders to help them manage?
Yeah, I think what I really want us to, kind of create an army of HR folks is to help change the narrative from, overwhelm is a personal failing of our employees to realizing that overwhelm is a systemic inevitability in how we're setting up our organizations. HR is really going to be able to help with thinking about, one of the chapters is shrink teams and strengthen communities. We need way smaller teams. We need way fewer people being dragged along on every quest. HR has such a valuable role to play in helping get this away from being a dialogue about personal failings or dead wood and getting on to systemic issues, processes, and dead work. So yeah, if we can all change that narrative, we'll change work, which is what I'm setting out to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of the HR function this year. I'm seeing like a shift from like organizational change to like work change. And how can we get more involved in that? And it takes real deep understanding of our businesses and how they're set up and what their outcomes are meant to achieve.
Yeah, it really does. But wow, there couldn't be a more valuable use of our time and energy and our thought load than to help on this issue. It's the issue of our times, I think.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for spending time with us today on foHRsight. Again, episode 15 to episode 165 is, thank you for being on the journey with us. But before you go, how can our listeners learn more about the great work you're doing and buy your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love if they picked up a copy of Thought Load. So lianedavey.com. And there's lots of stuff. One of the fun things they can do is we have a quick audit, a thought load audit. So you can get a sense of your own thought load and what are the biggest contributors to it. So that might be fun. And we have some new data that are going to come out soon on what we're seeing so far. So go to the website, fill that out, pre-order the book. And then if you want to chat about it, come over on LinkedIn. And as you know, you and I talk on LinkedIn often. I'm trying to make my LinkedIn comments into my LinkedIn couch. and the place where we have the most important conversations about work. So come on over to my LinkedIn couch and throw up a spicy comment and we'll chat.
Love it. And I'm going to do a CTA here. If anybody wants a copy of Liane's book, I can't promise it to everybody who does this, but we will give away a few free copies of Liane's book. All you have to do is post about this episode and tag myself, Naomi Titleman, and Future Forward, and we will put you in a draw for one of Liane's books. We would love for our listeners to have a copy.
Awesome. Thank you.
And before we go, we end with a feel good. So what are you feeling good about today, Liane?
I'm just feeling good about this conversation. I'm feeling good about how when we have the word thought load to use to give a name to this thing we've all been struggling with, I feel like then we have a hope of actually reducing it. And that feels amazing. Yeah. So people tell me like a week after talking, they'll be like, I've been using the word thought load all the time. And now that I'm more worried about keeping my thought load down and less focused on my workload, I'm making better decisions. So that makes me so excited.
Yeah. Talk about outcomes. That's incredible. So congratulations. And thank you so much again for sharing your insights from your book and being with me for the time we've spent today. And I look forward to connecting in person sometime.
Yep. Coffee soon.
Until next time, everyone, take care.